All right, welcome to Veterans Perspective. This is Jeff, your host of the podcast video essays. I'm not sure what to call it. You guys tell me. But today we are going to look at the topic from the last blog, which I will link down in the description. Is the VA too generous with veteran benefits? The moral argument says absolutely not. If you've listened to any video on this channel, minus my gaming videos, right? Because I'm a variety content creator. I started as a gaming content creator and I've always been into politics. I taught history and government. Yeah, I have degrees in history and government. Just those are passions of mine. So I do a variety of different content. I firmly believe that the VA is underfunded. The VA should be funded at the same rate as the Department of Defense / Department of War. Why we call it that is beyond me. And the fact that it's not is a problem. Okay? And a lot of this has stemmed from and been exacerbated by the Washington Post articles and by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Gade, who is the biggest Blue Falcon in existence during the VA hearings at the Senate a few weeks ago. So, this notion that the VA, if those that don't know what the VA means, the Department of Veterans Affairs is too generous with veterans, that's a red herring argument. It's a fallacy. Okay? It's a distraction from reality. And the immense long-term human cost of military service goes beyond a service member's time in the service. Okay? It's long-term. Okay? This argument, it's not only factually incorrect, but it's morally bankrupt. Morally bankrupt. It's often driven by a cynical worldview that prioritizes economic metrics over human well-being. And not just human well-being, the well-being of those that the government sends to fight its wars. So the toxic philosophy of work defines the man. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Gade, a decorated veteran, disabled veteran, has become the public face of this critique. He stated in his statement at the VA hearings that veterans and male veterans basically need to get back to work because work is what makes life worth living. Basically, that's what he said. That your work is your worth. And if you're not working, you're worth less. So that's his core philosophy, that men are primarily defined by their work, and that disability compensation, quote, robs veterans of purpose. That is deeply flawed and incredibly harmful. It's a narrow and cruel definition of work. That argument centers on the idea that benefits incentivize idleness. Okay? I am a disabled veteran. I am what is known as TDIU. Okay? I am totally disabled, individual, unemployable. Okay? That doesn't mean that I sit at home and do nothing. I'm doing this right now. I write my blog. Okay? I help my wife with her Etsy store, or our Etsy store. We're setting up a gym in the corner of our loft so I could start working out again. It's not like I do nothing. Okay? I go to my therapy sessions online and in person when I'm asked to, and the VA says I have to. So the idea of idleness, because we're not working, there's way more worth than work. Okay? This perspective commits a fundamental error. It conflates a monetary benefit with a person's intrinsic motivation. I thought for a long time, and some of my very best friends who may or may not watch this video can probably attest to that I thought that my job defined me as a human being, as a man. And when I left that job because of my disability and some additional triggers that showed up due to toxic leadership, I realized, and I'm still realizing, that a job is just a job. It's just a paycheck. My family's more important. My well-being is more important. Right? And I still have people that have to remind me of that every day. Because I've only been classified TDIU for a few weeks now. Right? I'm sorry, for 2 months. 2 months, so a few weeks. 8 weeks. And it's still hard for me. Right? Where I'm like, do I deserve it? And we're going to talk about that next week. Okay? The deserve part. Because yes, I do. Okay. But yes, I loved teaching. I loved helping kids. I loved educating. I loved working with passionate adults who wanted to be in education, which isn't all of them, who wanted to get better at their craft. I loved every bit of it, right? And I was good at my job. Sometimes I was good at my job at the detriment of me, at the detriment of time with my family. And that's a problem. That became a problem. Okay? And none of that is worth more than me. So this argument by Lieutenant Colonel Gade is wrong. It's morally wrong. Okay? It ignores hidden wounds. Okay? Gade's focus completely dismisses the persuasive nature of invisible wounds. He is anti-mental health and he is anti-PTSD. He does not want the VA to treat veterans with mental health issues. That was abundantly clear in the way he spoke. At least that is how I took it. That is my opinion. And I watched that sucker live. Okay, and I rewatched it when I wrote my blogs about it. He is anti-mental health. He wants nothing to do with that. Okay? Post-traumatic stress and other mental health disorders lead to physical disorders, like migraines, which I have, chronic migraines. Traumatic brain injury, TBI, gets exacerbated by PTSD. Okay? Now, the simple act of showing up to a regular 9-to-5 job in a competitive civilian environment can be an insurmountable task for a lot of us. Some of us don't have the capacity physically and or mentally to do that. And the fact that he doesn't recognize that tells me that whatever his doctorate is in, I think it's in like public administration or something, I'm not 100% sure, that his doctorate is not in mental health. That I know. Because the fact that he couldn't comprehend that, or he wasn't able to express the comprehension in that, was fucking wild to me. Absolutely wild. The compensation that we get for our disabilities isn't a reward for being lazy. It's a lifeline for survival and stability while managing debilitating service-connected conditions. And the fact that the colonel doesn't recognize that is crazy. He's missing a leg. I bet he gets benefits. Hell, he doesn't even want service-connected benefits. He only wants combat-connected benefits. At least, again, that's my opinion because that's what he said. This is a sexist and outdated philosophy. By continually focusing on how work defines the man and ignoring the millions of women in the service, including veterans, Gage he showcases an outdated and exclusionary perspective. Human worth is found in family, community service, creative pursuits, and simply being who you want to be. Okay? It's not in a fucking paycheck. Yeah, we need to find a way to make money to live and afford this bullshit with prices going up all the time, right? Yeah, we definitely need to do that, right? But it doesn't define who you are at all. Forcing a disabled veteran to choose between their dignity and a sub-minimum wage job they are medically ill-equipped to perform is not instilling purpose. It's adding additional injury to insult. The battle over compensation for common ailments. Gade, he often targets conditions he believes are minor or lifestyle related. Like he called it tinnitus, it's tinnitus, sleep apnea, and hypertension. He calls them old fat people conditions. He's attacking the PACT Act. Those of you who don't know, he's attacking the PACT Act with these conditions specifically. The PACT Act that us in the global war on terror world, especially, right? And I know that other wars benefited from this as well, but especially GWAT veterans benefited the most from, which was his fucking war. Literally, sleep apnea, hypertension, and tinnitus are all connected to issues that we face from sleeping next to generators, right? Going to fucking burn pits, which I went to almost every single day when I was at Camp Anaconda, right? LSA Anaconda in Balad in 2003. So old fat people diseases, are those things, do those things build up over time as you get older, as we put on weight, as human beings do? Sure, absolutely. But guess what, Colonel? They have a starting point, and that starting point is service connected. Honestly, I think Colonel Gade is not the smartest person that I've ever come up. He might be the dumbest colonel I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen some dumb colonels. And I'm being dead on right now. I'm not in the service anymore, so I don't give a fuck about military bearing, right? And my veterans will get that, right? I don't give a fuck, especially about this guy, right? Like, I have no respect for him. None. Okay? Completely ignores the overwhelming medical evidence connecting them to military service. In tinnitus, constant debilitating ringing in the ears, #1 service-connected disability, by the way. Direct result of explosive exposure, small arms fire, constant consistent noise, medically proven. Profoundly impacts sleep, concentration, and mental health. He thinks that medical issues should only impact one thing at a time and they can't branch out. It's wild. It's wild. Respiratory illnesses, conditions like sleep apnea and hypertension are now increasingly being linked to toxic exposures from burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, or Agent Orange exposure in Vietnam. The PACT Act was passed specifically to recognize these service conditions and to preemptively approve them as part of the claims process. Oh, you have these symptoms? Oh, you were here during this time? We are going to assume that this was caused by this because you were fucking breathing in burning batteries. Because what the fuck else would it be caused by? to demand that stuff from the PACT Act specifically be removed after people in the government, hell, even celebrities, man, fought for this to be passed is wild. To demand that they be removed from the list and that the VA ignore medical science is crazy. This is an established cost of war. And he wants it removed. He doesn't want veterans treated for this. Or he doesn't want the VA to treat them for it. Or for veterans to be compensated for it, to be rated for it. That's wild. In a war he fought in. Now, this isn't about Colonel Gade. It's just about what he said and how it ties into the argument of VA benefits and are they too high, too low, or just right? Because they're too fucking low. And this clown wants to take more of them away, and he's trying to convince the government to do it. So veterans, civilians who support veterans, we have to be vigilant here. Because there's a financial reality that the VA is underfunded, not overfunded. Okay? The real financial generosity of the federal budget is directed entirely towards the Department of Defense or War, not the VA. The claim that the VA is too generous is a toxic distraction meant to divert attention away from where the true money is spent. They're getting all of government and all civilians to talk about how much the VA spends on veterans instead of talking about how much the Department of Defense spends on civilian contractors. And yes, I have numbers for you. So let's put it into some perspective here. Okay? Figures fluctuate. Okay? Budget for the Department of Defense, the war chest, if you will. Fiscal year 2025, DoD's total budget request was around $849.8 billion. Money covers personnel, operations, equipment, research and development, R&D, and the entire military-industrial complex. VA budget, I call it the healing chest. The VA's proposed budget for the same year was roughly $365.4 billion. A significant number, certainly, but dramatically smaller than the DoD's. Much of this is mandatory spending for existing commitments like compensation and pension. So veterans that are already receiving these payments, that's obviously tied into that budget. Okay? So $849.8 billion for DoD versus $365.4 billion for VA. It's more than double. That tells you that our government cares more about war than the warrior. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, planes cost more money. Okay. We spend more money on defense than the next 27 countries combined, 26 of whom are allies. We sell all of our old shit to allies, some who become enemies, and then use that shit against our troops. Next argument. We also spend a lot of that money to send our troops to go places where we don't fucking belong. So my argument is for every dollar we spend fighting wars, we spend a fraction of that amount repairing the warriors that we broke. My call is for it to be equal. It should be mandatory and law that these two budgets are equal. DoD asks for a budget, they get their budget approved, and it's the same number for the VA. That's your budget for the year. And some people say, that's too much, that's too much. I don't give a fuck. I do not care. Because the VA needs more hospitals. They need more community care centers. They need more mental health doctors. Hell, they need more doctors in general, physical and mental health. They need more centers in rural areas across the country so veterans have a place to go. And my veterans that are in the system that have had to wait for referrals. I'm still waiting to get my MRI. I was supposed to have it back in September, halfway through November. Still waiting. Still waiting. Would that happen in the civilian world? If you say yes, you're a fucking liar. And you know you are. So this isn't just a call for monetary parity. Because yes, I am calling for that. I'm calling for moral parity. This disparity leads directly to the core demand. Again, the VA should be funded to the amount of the DoD's discretionary budget. The discretionary budget should be exactly the same. It's not about shuffling money. It's a complete restructuring of our national priorities. This spending is not just spending. We're shuffling our priorities in a fulfillment of the moral contract. We send you to war, we take care of you. It's in our contracts. It is in our contracts. And I would argue that the government is not fulfilling their end of the bargain. Investing in life, not death. Funding the VA at a level equivalent to the DoD means investing in healing, recovery, housing, job training, and mental health infrastructure at a level equal to the nation's investment in weapon systems and conflict. If we're investing in those things for the warrior that comes home, you have a higher veteran working class, you have a higher veteran healing class, and you potentially have less veterans committing suicide. Tell me where that's bad. You can't. This addresses the backlog of veteran claims. If you have more money to spend, you can address the claims process, which definitely needs a revamping. I would argue that we need to get rid of third-party C&P examiners, compensation and pension examiners. They need to be in-house, and the VA needs to budget for that. Higher funding addresses this backlog in claims processing, reduces wait times for critical mental health appointments, and it upgrades completely run down and dilapidated VA facilities that veterans are often forced to use because it's the closest one to them. Proactive care, not reactive care. I am sick and fucking tired of reactive care for veterans. Proactive care. A fully funded VA could shift from reactive care to proactive preventative care, dramatically improving the long-term health outcomes for veterans and potentially reducing the lifetime cost of their care. The obligation, the debt that cannot be repaid. Ultimately, the argument that veteran benefits are too generous fails because it attempts to place a price tag on a debt that is unquantifiable and non-negotiable. Warriors that sign on the dotted line, whether they go overseas or not, I want to be very clear about that. Okay? Yes, there are veterans that served in combat, like me. Okay? But there are veterans that served their country that happen to not deploy. People in the service don't choose to deploy. They're told to deploy. They get orders. That doesn't mean they're not a veteran. People get hurt on base. There's accidents, right? Shit goes down. Some awful traumatic shit goes down, like sexual assault. Okay? And those people deserve to be taken care of too, because they're veterans. They served their country. And people like Lieutenant Colonel Gade only think that combat veterans should be taken care of, and that is bullshit. Bullshit. I have plenty of friends from my time in the military who did not deploy. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. They don't fucking write the orders. And some of those people went through some traumatic shit caused by another service member, by a leader. And they deserve to be taken care of too, because that shit happened during their time in the service. And because of their time in the service. Society and our government have a clear fundamental obligation to care for those of us who signed a blank check to our country for that amount up to and including our lives. Because very few of us signed that check. Very few of us put it on the line. And the least this fucking government can do is fulfill this obligation. This is not a political talking point. I do not care what side of the aisle you are on. I do not care who is in charge. I do not care who holds the most seats in the Senate or the House. I do not care the political leanings of the Supreme Court. This is a moral imperative, not a political argument. Veterans are not a charity case. In fact, we're probably some of the hardest workers you've ever fucking met. I can tell you right now, if you talk to some of my teacher friends, they'll tell you right now, Jeff's one of the hardest working guys I know. He's also an asshole, but he's one of the hardest working guys I know. He'll hold me accountable, and he's one of the hardest working guys I know. We are creditors who are simply being paid back. We are owed. And veterans usually don't say that, but we are owed. And we have been paid back inadequately for the trauma, exposure, and physical toll that we have endured. And until the VA is capable of providing best-in-class healthcare, compensation, and support instantly without bureaucratic delay, the conversation shouldn't be about whether benefits are too generous. It should be about how we can finally make them adequate. I'm going to say that line again. Okay? Veterans are not a charity case. They are creditors who are simply being paid back. We are owed, and we have been paid back inadequately for the trauma, exposure, and physical toll that we endured during our time in the service. And until the VA is capable of providing best-in-class healthcare, best-in-class compensation, and support instantly without bureaucratic delay, the conversation should never be about whether our benefits are too generous. It should be about how we can finally make them adequate for the warriors that put it on the line for this country. Period. The link to the blog will be in the comments. Please make sure you follow, like, subscribe. Do the same for the blog. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments as well. I'm curious to everyone's thoughts about this one. We've been rocking and rolling on YouTube. I think we're at almost 3,400 subscribers. Doing pretty good. So I appreciate y'all. Definitely let's keep it rolling. Make sure you share with everyone. Get the word out there. I enjoy doing these little video essays. I know sometimes I scream and yell and stuff like that. I'm also going to put the link to the Etsy store down in the comments because we have the holiday season is here. Make sure you guys get your orders in for a t-shirt, wall art, sweatshirt, coffee mug. Before the holidays, we do have free shipping. I will keep free shipping on for the entire holiday season for any order. For any order, any price, I will cover the shipping, okay? that'll be down in the description as well. Okay. Thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.